Hello everyone. This new video is going to be rather different than previous videos I've done before. And this will actually probably be the longest video on the entire channel. I had the opportunity to speak with a remarkable woman. Her name is Doina Grecu, and she is a Romanian immigrant to the United States. And she was born and raised in Romania while it was a communist dictatorship. And her story is definitely fascinating. I think it's worthwhile to hear it, to hear what it was like living in a communist dictatorship and having to make that decision to flee, to run away, to go somewhere else. So I'm very thankful to Doina for allowing me to speak with her and also to record the meeting that we had. And I made the decision that I'm not going to edit anything. The entire conversation is going to be uploaded on this video. You can listen to the entire thing. It's like 2 hours long. I just also wanted to add a caveat that the views that she expresses are her own and not necessarily the ones of, they're not necessarily mine. I don't either agree or disagree necessarily. I just really wanted to hear what she had to say and let her speak. And so I think that her story is very, very valuable to listen to and to try to understand what it was like living in a communist dictatorship. So without further ado, unedited, uninterrupted, this is my conversation with Doina Grecu.
For your students.
And would you mind telling us your name?
Doina Grecu.
Doina Grecu.
Mm-hmm.
Doina Grecu.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And where are you from?
Romania. I'm born in Romania.
Do you mind if I ask when you were born?
I'm born in 48.
48, 1948.
Yeah. The communists took over in 44 and I'm born in 48.
Okay. And this will probably be later. I feel like a lot of Americans don't know much about Eastern European history, let alone specifically Romania.
Mm-hmm.
I myself don't know too much.
Mm-hmm.
I know, for instance, that Romania was conquered by the Ottoman Empire for a while.
Yeah. For about 500 years.
For a long, yeah, a long while.
Yeah.
And then also, one of my really good friends is like obsessed with Romanian history. And I actually told him I was going to talk to you, and he made me promise that I ask this question.
Yes.
So it might be a bit of a silly question.
Yes.
What do you think of Vlad the Impaler?
Our history goes back 7,000 years ago. Vlad the Impaler was a great, great leader. And we don't know the truth. Okay. In Romania, we have a guy. His name is Vasile Lupașc. He put his life to find money and ways to search on Vlad the Impaler. He wrote a book. I have the book. I have the first volume. And the name is Răstignit între cruci, which in English would be crucified in between or among crosses, something like that. Okay. His book, it's not fiction. It's based on documents, all documents. And the reality, it's much more impressive than any fiction. The fiction that you guys know doesn't have anything to do with Vlad the Impaler. Okay. I'm trying to be very short. So, about Vasile Lupașc. Somebody from Hollywood, a few years ago, went to Romania, wanted to talk to him, and he said, wow, we would like to make a movie with your book, based on... And they said, okay, we will sign a contract. And he thought, and he was a martial arts teacher, and every money that he made, he put to research for the book, Vlad, and to help his students. And he put his own money into this. The answer was this: look, I will sign you a contract. I don't need a penny, but you don't change anything in my book. Nothing.
Yeah.
They signed the contract. After 5 years, right now, the movie is not made. Okay. So, what was he called the Impaler? Romania was... so the Constantinople was conquered. Mm-hmm. Vlad was there. His brother was a younger brother, and he was pretty and more blonde, and more young looking. He was not. I don't know by how much he was younger, but he was younger than Vlad. He became toy sex in the, I don't know how better express this. Okay. And so the machine was on the run. From there, it was on the run towards the Danube and further down, which they did. But it just happened that my country, on that time there were two countries. Vlad the Impaler was on the south, and Moldova, which was on the east, mm-hmm. was on the east side. We had for a while, for 100 years almost, until Vlad our great king in Moldova, Stefan. And is Stephen here, no? Mm-hmm. Okay, he died in 1504. He had about 50 wars with the Turks, and he won not but by high technique military, because it's impossible. A tiny country like that fighting with big Ottoman Empire. They had to use psychological techniques. Mm. And he won. He kept Moldova sovereign. And when it was the time of Vlad, Vlad knew that either he will fight to death, or he will become slave, the whole country. Okay, he did. His victory against the Ottoman Empire, because he became king by himself. He didn't go to Istanbul to ask the permission. No, mm-hmm. Somebody that is a historian will know much more. I know the core political part of it. So he became king, and he started to prepare for war. There were about 30,000 that he had. We did not have an army. Our army were the peasants, were the owners of the land, leaving the land, kids and women and old people, and going to war. That was the army. Mm-hmm. Unlike the Turks. The Turks had 4 times more.
And they were the Janissaries.
Huh?
The Janissaries, very professional.
Yeah, the Janissaries, yes. So they were 4 times more than us. So as they came closer to Vlad, Vlad, remember, he spent time. He was in Istanbul. He knew the language. He was fluent in his own, and he knew 2 dialects actually, I think. So he started a war of intimidation, psychological intimidation, and so he was so daring. He had so much courage that he did many things to completely scare them away. He got some of them, he killed them, and he put them on the impaled them. No, okay. So
Hence
the Turks, the Turks got all got afraid of that, and in one night that was closer to the big confrontation, he went in their camp in a night, dressed as a Turk, and he tried to kill the big guy. So to finish the war, it just happened that on that night, he was spending the night in another sex toy, probably. I don't know. he spent in another tent. Okay, so he's killing somebody else, and at this point they realize, and who are they? And they managed to Vlad and his people managed to get out, and then this intimidation was all the time, with no interruption, so they managed. The actual physical confrontation was partially. It's because they burned the land. They didn't have any food. So it was this kind of war, and it was a little bit of fight where Vlad was okay, but he couldn't fight their number. So finally, they were so ran down that they retreated. So when you retreat like that, you lost the battle. In Vatican, I don't remember who was on the Vatican, one of the Clements. Who is this guy? That such a small country that it's like a grain of sand. Okay, and he sent one of his people. They were speaking Latin, and he went in Romania, and he met Vlad. And actually, you see his picture over there.
Yeah, I did notice that as I was coming.
So and he asked. That guy came and had a big interview with Vlad, and on his way back, he wrote a book. And Vasile Lupașc, this teacher that put his life for kids and for this subject, somewhat in his research got wind of that. And it took him like a year or something to identify the text in Vatican. That book was never opened. So he made a copy, he took it in Romania, and I think by now it's supposed to be translated in Romanian or maybe in English, I don't know, about Vlad. So you fight with this much strength, and you bring laws in a country. No killing, no theft, or you're dead. So it was simple. They didn't have time for. So on his time, probably you knew, the people were so. They did it by whatever plus fear. If you will leave your purse with gold money on the street, you'll find it in the morning over there, because if somebody would take it, he will be dead. So when he's fighting at this level, and he's bringing in 2 years the capital Târgoviște is raising up, flourishing in only 2 years, the crop and everything, and the trade and everything. And you have rich people, that they are betraying the country. It's always like that. We have the same thing in DC right now. We always have that. It's part of our terrible shortcoming as human being. I don't know, but Romanians. So the rich people, all the blue collar people, they call, I don't know, peasants, and they loved Dracula, the so-called Dracula. They did not know this name. They love Vlad Țepeș. They love Vlad, and the rich people were comploting, making conspirating to kill him. So Vlad, to make it very simple, Vlad knew that this country, the poorest person is going to take the weapon, whatever weapon he has, if not fire weapons, everything, a shovel or something, and he will go and fight the Turks, and rich people will betray the country. So majority of the people will keep their country and their land and their families, and all the people will sell out the country. So these are the people that he impaled. So because he was very tough on trade means equal, mutual, no? You give this, I give you this, so we trade, no? Mutuality. No, because Romania was so smashed by them and so poor. The people in Transylvania, they wanted to take advantage. He made laws, they hate him. They, at that time, the print, the Gutenberg, was new, so they had the media, and by the media they start to say all kind of fake stories. So Vlad Țepeș was the king of the people, and he was hated by the people. They would betray their country. That's basically what he is. Yeah.
And so I guess to summarize, would you say he was a hero?
Big time. He was, he was studied as an idea of conquering and fighting against a big empire in details. Yeah, he's well known. Yeah.
And I guess especially, a lot of Americans don't know a lot of this stuff. I think probably Vlad in America is most known for impaling people. And also, he was, what was his name? Bram Stoker based his novel Dracula on Vlad the Impaler. So that's kind of like the only connections that many Americans have is, he's that guy that impaled people and he was a vampire. So what do you think about that many Americans kind of just think of him as a vampire?
Americans, they are consuming whatever is presented to them. Mass media is this what will present, no? And that time, the mass media was, from the beginning, was against him, because mass media is, mass media, the media, the print, the printer, after Gutenberg, was very well used and known in Transylvania. Transylvania was ahead, because it was connected with the Hungarian Empire. Anyway, long story. So starting from that point all the way today, how can Vlad be accepted if he's such a big nationalist? He's nationalist. This value is not accepted or loved in this country either, and nowhere in Europe. You'd go in Europe and talk to young people and say, nationalism is a question of the past. What? How can you have unity if you don't have diversity? How can you have a trade when you don't have countries? We trade. Who's trading? Big corporations? Forget about countries. So we forget about everything. Forget about values, families, frontiers, language, traditions, everything. We are in la la land over here.
And I guess this might be a good transition then.
Yeah.
So you were born 1948 in Romania.
Mm-hmm.
And when did you come to the United States?
I came in 79.
79.
Mm-hmm.
So, wow. So you must have been like 29, 30?
40 years.
Oh, I'm sorry. I did my math wrong.
Yeah. Over 40 years.
40 years.
Yeah.
So, wow. So like all your formative years were
I
in
lived in
Romania.
this country longer than in my own country.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you mind telling us a little bit about what life was like in communist Romania?
Okay. We knew that communism is evil. Because, how do I need to simplify. I need to be very short. Romania had kings. We traditionally had 2-3 parties. So we had the school, the Romanian school, was very much modeled to France after the revolution. So in other words, French was our second language basically in a country. So we are very much attracted by the political landscape at France after the French Revolution, thinking at that time that French Revolution was a progressive kind of movement, kind of phenomenon. Okay. So 98% on that time or so, Romanians were Orthodox, Greek Orthodox.
Mm-hmm.
And
do you mind if I ask what your religion is?
Greek Orthodox.
You're also Greek Orthodox.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah. So this, it's for a Romanian, it's very simple. I am still wondering about exactly what was the landscaping in Russia, because how do they manage right now in America anyway. For Romanians to be a deep follower of Christ and be Greek Orthodox, it's the contrary of being a communist. It's very simple. Because communism is no family, no religion, no God, no faith, no God, no family, no values, and no property, no private property. So Romania was 98% or so Greek Orthodox, and almost the same amount, 80% or something or more. About there, because we already started to have quite interesting big industry, but it was peasant agriculture, so it was an homogeneous kind of structure. Okay, now. Okay, I will continue by telling you that whatever happened in Romania right now, it's the opposite what I see here. In Romania, when they came to power in 1917 in Russia. In 1919, you have the first reaction, anti-communist reaction in Romania. And Romania is the country, arguably, is the country that has the most powerful reaction against communism. So, for young people, when communists came in 1944, it was clear who they are. Nobody will trust them. So, In 46, we had elections. In the elections, there were communists and another two parties. One party was connected with agriculture sector. Okay, he won about 82% of the elections. The communists won about 5 or something. There were a lot of allogen elements from out of country. There were some Romanians, but very few. Okay, something happened that the results from this election was not announced for the first 2 weeks. In this country was overnight. Something happened overnight. In our country, 2 weeks. So after 2 weeks, so they figure out what to do, how to do officially, because they had to. The king was still in power. The party was still in power. They were not, probably they were checking what is the power of the outside of the countries that will help Romania, and whatever their mind preparation was. After 2 weeks, they said, "Oh, we won the election. 82% was communism and 5% was your party. Done." Okay. It was announced, everybody was, "Oh, we are occupied," and the life changed completely. So now I'm to this point that I would like to make. Everybody in Romania, except they were corrupted by there were some workers, factory workers. There was, you come with a proletariat, the power of the proletariat, and so on. We are going to do this and this, promises. Okay, some of them, like probably I would say hundreds, 700, 800, 900 at the most. Some people say 200, whatever. So I put them aside, but the rest of 22 million people, and that time there were more, because Romania was big, was 30, so it was like 25 or something million. Or sorry. They were thinking, they knew who they are, so they know that they have enemy, a big enemy to fight against, and they were thinking one thing and they were saying something else in order to protect. This is what I did in my school. You asked me about in my school. I know I have, whatever I'm thinking is not what I'm talking. It's a disconnect between talking and thinking. Okay. In this country, I see young people that they are convinced that so-called globalism is good for this country. The information about the enemy is lost. The energy, the information is lost. The energy, the motivation is lost. So we are going backwards. So Romania was all the time, people will become member of the political parties by calculation. I will get I have to pay. They have to pay for a month, whatever, 5% or I don't know how much. Okay, but I know that I can advance and I can have my kids will stay in school and so on. My situation was, I was extremely lucky. My father was put in prison. My father was in prison for more than 12 years. Hard. When Solzhenitsyn heard what happened in Romania, in one prison that my father was lucky not to be, he was humbled by what happened in my country. Solzhenitsyn knew. Okay. So I with all my heart, I couldn't make this deal. Okay, I will become and I will advance on something. None of my brothers, I have 3 brothers, None of us in our family were a member of the political Communist Party. I am not in their papers. I am not in their documentation. So, and my father, after 12 years, he came back. He was kind of a young man, and he came back. He was 54. So he was also never a Communist Party.
Do you mind if I ask?
Yes, please.
We don't have to get into it too far if you don't want to. Do you know why he was arrested?
Yeah, because he was anti-communist.
Mm-hmm.
He was openly. He was part of organization that was anti-communist.
He was a counter-revolutionary, so-called.
Yeah. It was a nationalistic movement.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that nationalistic movement was encompassed a lot of young people. There were hundreds of thousands of people put in prison for their beliefs in Christ and in freedom, property, and family and faith and so on. And that's a big story. But my father suffered for freedom and for Christ.
And connected to that, I recently finished reading a book that was about communism and how it related to religion. And there's a chapter in that book that talks about Romania. And the author notes that very recently, like 2019, the Catholic Pope went to Romania to, I guess the term is beatify, or there were nine Roman Catholic priests in that prison that you were referencing. I know which one you're talking about. I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah, I know cases. I know. Yes, okay.
And it's kind of what you're saying is that. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. They were made into saints because they were considered...
not made into saints. No.
The Catholic priests.
Who made them?
Oh, the Pope.
The Pope? When was that? I don't know.
I think that was about 2 years ago.
Oh, I have to find out about this. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think they made the decision to make them into saints because they were considered to be martyrs. Because they were treated so horribly. So horrifically.
Oh, yes.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you.
No, I'm thank you for saying this. I'm just going to go and find out. Roman Catholics, I know a lot of people that were Roman Catholics, and the Orthodox in church, they were in prison. They were kind of brothers, but being Orthodox, to be Orthodox, it's very, very tough. Including anyway, because Orthodoxy, it's a different story. They are more nationalistic people. They are more nationalistic, than and whatever. So I don't know about this. I'm just going to find out because I know a person that is a good friend of mine in Romania, and his father was in prison for 14 years or something like that. I knew people that were in prison for 22 years.
And for not doing a crime.
Just for political, for the First Amendment. For the First Amendment, that's all. And they were not in a paramilitary organization, to be very clear. They were in political and educational based groups. They were not paramilitary. So
they weren't violent.
No, they didn't have weapons. They have weapons. Whoever had weapons, just like we have right now in America. You want to buy a weapon, you have a clean record, you can buy a weapon. But they were political people. They were people that they wanted to rebuild their country based on values, nationalistic values.
And would you say that communism was imposed on Romania?
Absolutely, 1,000%.
Specifically by like the Soviet Union, the Red Army?
Yeah, in our case. So the Western Europe and America financing the elite that took over, destroy Russia, it came from there, and then they continue. The same people continue in Eastern Europe, and it was Romania, Bulgaria, Poland, Germany, half of Germany, Czechoslovakia, and Hungary.
And then, and then Albania and Yugoslavia were also communist, but they were independent.
They were half.
Yeah.
They were half and half. The deal was made in between the Roosevelt and Stalin and Churchill on a piece of paper between the people that they can decide about millions. Yeah.
I guess, how does that make you feel in that, World War II is very, very important for everyone. My great-grandfather fought in World War II. He was a tail gunner in a B-17. And, especially how we remember World War II is, we're fighting to free Europe from fascist and Nazi tyranny. And yet, at the end, one half of Europe is free, and the other half is given to the Soviet Union, basically. So I wonder, how does that make you feel? Or what do you think about that?
That's a scam. The idea is the wars are to divide people and to make money. So the people up that we don't know about, they make money. We sacrifice our kids. We work for free in factories to create weapons and so on. So we divide Europe, we weaken Europe, and then we get Europe ready for the new system, which is now. Which is what? A bunch of unelected people with capital in Brussels. So that's why we fought and we died, to have unelected people. What is in Europe right now, and everything is curtailed. Freedom, national pride, diversity, everything is curtailed. Money. It's just another scam, and another scam is getting prepared to be installed here.
To rewind a little bit.
Yeah.
So you grew up in Romania while it was a communist country. Can you maybe tell us a little bit about what school was like?
Very interesting question. Communists came like a thunderstorm, in a second. Romania had already structured their structure. They were French style, the good part of the French school. So we had very powerful, good prepared teacher in schools, elementary, high school. When you finish high school, it was a big baccalaureate. It's called examination, and when you are done with that, the level was like high school plus foundation studies in college right here. And you go to school and you finish the college, and when you are done, including a big paper that you have to sustain your paper, to present your paper, it's like almost like a master. It was. So it was a clash. The communists took over. They completely controlled the media. We had one TV or one or two channels, one or two, three newspapers, so on. And yet, into this kind of huge simplicity, people and into a situation where all the power, the fighters were in prison, yet it was enough of energy in Romania to have here a teacher that he managed not to be involved in any political parties, and he was a capacity. He was a top-notch teacher. I was very lucky to have two teachers like that, one for French language and one for Romanian.
And they weren't communists.
And it was during communism, yes. Here you have a person that knows what's communist, was not involved in politics, and he chose to do to be in a communist party in order to survive and to make sure that to have a future for the kids. So those people were putting brakes, soft brakes all over. You have a whole texture, a whole fabrics of, so I'm talking about the first 25 years. The first generation, it was, no matter how much they put, they were priests, they were in prison, there were all kind of people, and yet the church was opened. People follow church, although in school we are told you cannot go to church because the blah 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 blah, and somewhat into a kind of chaotic and erratic and yet lucky system. We kind of function to keep not to become robots, you know. Okay, and in the meantime, the politics was very harsh. The political party was Soviet style, was like a cartoon. It was a cartoon for us. We were laughing. On May 1st, when we had the big manifestation of the proletarian, the free proletarian, we will go there because it was the only time in a year where we can have a hot dog and a good piece of bread with mustard, and we will get together and talk and so on. And when we will go in front of because everybody, thousands and thousands of people had to go like a river in front of that tribune. It was like set up a place where all these people in Communist Party central committee of the party, they were there. So some of them will say, "Woo, woo," you know. Some of them we didn't even pay attention. We will just. Some of them, they were just taken by the, but anyway, just to make sure they had, the sound was set up, you know, they pre-recorded people, you know, luckily saying, "Wow, hurrah, hurrah, hurrah," you know, and it was a disconnect, another disconnect.
Hold on. Wait, are you saying they had speakers set up with canned like applause and cheers?
Yes, instead of us. Instead of us. Us, we are talking among ourselves, and some people with courage will say, "Whoa, whoa," you know, to to the.
Oh, so like boo.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
boo, boo, yeah. But no, it doesn't matter what we did. The sound was happy.
And I'm sorry to laugh. I don't mean
Oh
to.
yeah,
It's just that
it's laughable.
it's-
Of course.
it's so absurd.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Disconnect. Completely disconnect. We are doing whatever you are doing, and they were doing whatever they were doing. Yeah. So okay. So this structure was hard. Was very rigid. The people in power were very rich, all of them. And it was completely a disconnect. You'll never see them among people or something. You know. It was the 1% up there, and the rest we are on a kind of a welfare kind of situation. Everybody had a job, and everybody had minimum and something. Okay, and then something happened. After a while, Romania asked for money from the West to develop to have money to get developed economically, and part of the requirement was you have political prisoners, So okay, they did an amnesty in '64. So the bed was between 48 to 64. Many thousands of people died, hundreds of thousands, a million, I don't know exactly. I can find out and tell you exactly how many. Altogether in a whole country, probably there were a million. Part of them they died, and the younger people came back home, like my father did in '64, and then the country had money, and the old leader was ousted by the Soviets because the old leader wanted to be independent. To get independence. So he was ousted, he was killed practically by the Soviets. And the new guy came, Ceausescu. When I was in Romania, nobody was put in prison during Ceausescu. Yeah, the economy went up, but nobody can kind of talk freely, nobody can travel, the money was kind of low, but the country bloomed economically. And Ceausescu practically, you are not going to hear that too much, rebuilt Bucharest. Everything that it's new was during Ceausescu. And we have a new country. Why don't you hear? Because Ceausescu became very nationalistic. He used communism as a good shield, and he became very nationalistic. You can see right here immediately, he became the black sheep for the people, for the real communists who are internationalistic. They are not nationalistic. So he had to be eradicated, and he was. Because in my mind, when I was in communist, I couldn't distinguish. I only knew this when I came here. I couldn't distinguish. I didn't understand. Everything that was bad, and I hated about communism, starting with the Soviets and with the president, to me was Ceausescu. Actually, Ceausescu was away from being internationalistic, being more nationalistic. They didn't like that. Ceausescu did one thing. He paid off all the money that he owed to IMF. And on this moment, he signed his death sentence. He did that in 89. In 89, in April, he announced publicly that. So how he did that? Big shortages. People didn't have enough heat, enough food. He was such an idiot. He did not know how to communicate. People had no idea what was he doing. So he kept people with no food and no heat. We had a kind of a joke. He said, "Hey, during the beginning of this winter, close the window because the people passing by outside can get cold." So anyway, on that he wanted to start a bank, international bank for third world. He wanted to be independent financially. He already had a pretty interesting nuclear power in a country. I had no idea about this. In the last minute, so everything is set up for Ceausescu to be ousted. Everything, forces from the Soviets, who knows? It was a setup stuff, and so Ceausescu is in the last minute he has this famous speech, and in this famous speech he started to say, "Hey, we have enemies outside. They would like to destroy our country. I can give you another 100 more per month. I can give you I don't know what. And they are very bad, malefic forces that they are going to destroy our country." Nobody had absolutely no idea what he's talking about. Everybody was hating him, you know. So he was an idiot. He was talking with whom? In the last hour, you're saying this. Who is going to understand what you're saying? So they killed him. And gradually, I kind of start to understand. And what you are not going to find out in this country. This country will never tell you that Ceausescu was killed people no, he didn't. He was just a communist guy that was applying communism, and he wanted to develop Romania, but he was. Let me be very clear. I didn't like Ceausescu, and at this point, I still don't like him. I understand him better, but he used communism very well, and he preserved our nationalistic values like an amazing way. So I find here something interesting with him, but he was repressing people, but not prison. He was not smart enough and educated enough, and he was not. The guy was basically a communist, but he was the best that could have happened in my country. So what I'm saying is, the minute he turned from the internationalistic pattern, he was disavowed, and he lost support, and he disappeared. If he would be born again, he would know what to do.
There's actually that's interesting that you bring up Ceausescu, because I was going to ask you about it. Because I was doing some reading before I came here, just to bone up. And because when he was executed with his wife, like outside some building,
in
on the street.
No, in a courtyard, in an enclosed place.
Yeah, but they got it on camera, and I think it was actually on TV.
Yeah, but did you see people that killed him?
I don't recall.
No. You can see him being shot and fall down, but not. So we don't know who killed him.
To rewind a little bit, so you came to the United States in 1979. So clearly you made the decision to leave Romania. Do you remember? Was there any particular reason you wanted to leave Romania? Was there like a moment where you said, "That's it, I want to leave"?
Ever since I was a kid. I remember I was thinking, I'm not going to get married and to die in this country. And I was not telling this to my family. I didn't even tell him to my good friends. It was a deep desire of mine to know the world, and I think I don't want to sound, it's so private to my heart, but
That's fine.
I think that God helped me, because I was 3 months old when my father was put in prison. They beat him so hard that after 2 weeks he had to make a declaration about him, where he was born, wherever, and the name of his children, and he couldn't remember my name. And he said, "Come on," they were making fun of him. "Come on, you don't know the name of your daughter." And he said, "I forgot." And I knew all this when he came, when I was 16. When I was 16, he came back. He came in '64, and he told me this, and he told me few things, not a lot, because no, my father was very wise. He did not proselytize anything with me. He let me. He later on he told me he will be a life role model, correct, not not making compromises and so on, correct and so on. A guy that was always for high education or something, and he will let us live our life and make our own decisions about Romania, because it was not healthy to talk with kids about against communism, So when he came from prison, he said, "Okay, Doina, let's go to the museum, our art museum. We had a kind of an interesting collection. We have few Rembrandts, we have El Greco, we have one Rubens, we have some few, and we have some interesting from medieval time, Renaissance paintings and sculpture and Greek and Romans and so on. So an interesting museum. And I remember him when we got, so the beginning it was the Neolithic part, and then later on, the history, and when we got to the Renaissance part, he stopped in front of a head, a Christ head, with crown
of thorns.
Spine with
crown of thorns.
Yeah, it was not a crown actually. It was So the crown, in that painting was Christ with long hair and a crown of thorns and with bleeding, and almost he was in tears when he couldn't go away from that painting. It was a painting a little bit like Mona Lisa's dimensions. And he talked to me for about 2 hours about that painting, about Christ, and it was so powerful. I was only 16, and I remember after years, all I could remember was those hours and a half or 2 hours sitting in front of, it's called Pietà.
No, I know that.
Pietà, yeah. So it was a Pietà, and I think that when I had a hard time in my life, as a young person, I had a dream with Christ. Anyway, I don't know, but for the rest of my life, my father never gave me speeches, anti-communist speeches, never. But he also, he will not talk like it doesn't exist. He will talk about history, ancient history, or Renaissance history, or something new modern history, but never about communism. And he will talk about Christ in through such a human way that I all the time felt like Christ was like a person that he met, my father. They knew each other. It was like a big brother. It was something extremely approachable. And so actually those values saved me in general in life. Not always, but it was a good guidance. So this is what helped me in communism. And I think there are a lot of young people in this country right now that they are a little bit like I was in this country.
Mm-hmm. Can you clarify that a little bit? Like, what exactly do you mean?
You know, I don't know if you realize, but there are a lot of there are a lot of alternative media, all kind. I'm impressed by black people in alternative media, amazing voices, or whites, or whatever. It's stupid to use these words. They are Americans. You know, this racist theory, it's imposing on us a kind of talk that I never had before. So anyway, alternative media people, they believe in Christ, and they wear a cross. I don't know if you saw it.
I guess it would depend on the example.
There are a lot. There are a lot of people, not all of them. You're not going to see this in CNN and MSNBC and CBS and all that, you know. I met a lot of young people. They have interest in solid values, because the essence of us is not materialistic. It's not the matter. The matter, you can make it. It's not. It's the core of who we are. It's spiritual, and that spiritual, it's helping you to create the matter that you need. And I met people that they were looking for this type of value, and to me at this age, you cannot reach that value if you don't understand the creation. Or two things. That's fine. You can be an atheist. You can be. It doesn't matter what you are, but you don't have to repress anything. So, to be more clear, in school, to me, I don't understand. You know, I was raised in communism. I never heard in communism that will be a big, truly, it was like a slogan somewhere on a political party when they were talking, they're having speeches. But for the rest of our life, there was no adversity between science and beliefs and creation. There was not. My father was always a big believer, and he was always big on science. We all had to do our math and our chemistry and our physics, and if you have a problem, you go to the doctor, and you know, you don't heal yourself. You go to the doctor. You believe in science. Right here, it's madness was happening. I think in school, the kids have to be informed about Darwin and about the creation, and let them figure out. they can grow out of this. They can read all the history about communism and something, read anti-communist, read everything. Everything should be on a table. Nothing has to be censored. Nothing. And if you do that, then you create strong spirits. Don't you think so?
I am definitely opposed to censorship.
Yes.
And I guess that would be another interesting question to go down is, what was media like in Romania?
2 channels, few newspapers. So what? Nobody will read them. They were like 4 pages. And they had what we had, Russians and us, we had samizdat. Samizdat means self-publishing. So people were typing all kind of things, and they were not even, we didn't even have copy machines, because with copy machines you can kind of find out. They were type machines, manuals with carbon paper. 1, 2, 3, 4, the 6. The 6 was not very readable, but still was something. Yeah, and this is how we had old books that they were, when communists came over, we had to immediately when the communists took over, they took over all the weapons, gold, all the gold, and the books. So weapons, immediately they took all over. The people didn't fool around with that. But, and the gold also. Few pieces here, there, maybe some cases. But the books, they were all somewhat, I don't know, buried, something. And we had still around us, we are circulating among us with the high confidence people. We have books, and some is that a tight paper, and people had a lot of good memory. For instance, in prison, they one of their strength was the believing in God, in Christ. And there were people, they knew by heart all kind of long standard kind of prayers, and they put together, one remember that, so they kind of put together that, and they had in a prison, they circulated 2 things: a whole book of prayers for Christ, and 1 or 2 volumes of the most amazing poetry by one of the biggest poet that Romania had. And every single poem was, they didn't have papers, they didn't have writing, they were not allowed, they could be killed. So everything was memorized and passed on. They use Morse. Because all the water system of everything was 2 pipes, and the pipes were not part of they were poor countries, they were not part of the walls, they were outside, so they could knock down on the Morse. So they had all this culture and all this it's called, my father, in a second part of his prison, it was in a place in Transylvania called Aiud. And Aiud, it's called even now the Academy of Aiud, because they had people there, they were big top-notch people, political or professors, so they were teaching history, languages, French, German, Latin, Greek. They were teaching, they were having classes among themselves, politics and so on. So my father, when he came out of he was kind of readings. He came back with a lot of knowledge. The same thing happened even more on the free people. So actually, it was repressive, and we lived in poverty. But the country was kind of kept nationalistically at high level with the values, and we had an powerful interior life. We are aware of the world. We knew languages, we knew geography, we knew history, and we are not consumers. You know, like a tendency in this country.
I guess that's also a good transition. So you left 1979.
Mm-hmm.
Is there, I guess it's two questions really.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any particular reason you chose the United States?
Yes.
And
Yes. I could have, have the aspiration or practical to go to France. I never wanted to go to France. I appreciate because nobody asked me this question. I am stunned that you asked me this question. I didn't want to go to France. I speak French since I was 7. I almost have no accent. So I didn't want to, and I loved the French culture. And on that time, oh my God, French Revolution and so on. I liked the singers and the theater, and no. And why not? Because I knew that if I will go to France, I will always be that little Romanian in France. I will never be French. And I was very young, but I kind of understood that. I wanted to go in a country where I am not branded. I'm Romanian. People asking me, where are you from? Where are you from? They're not, what are you? So I wanted to come in this country because for this reason, and for the fact that when I was a translator. I had a job after I finished school for about 8-9 years, and I had a chance to read the Constitution. And when I read that the people are free to pursue their happiness, and those words were part of the Constitution, I said, that's another planet. How come? It's unlike anything that I know on this planet. This is so a language like this is part of the Constitution of a country. So I wanted to go to that country. So
I guess connected to that, do you feel that this might be a silly question, do you feel that there were fewer rights in Romania than in the United States?
Rights?
Like freedom of speech, freedom of the press?
In Romania, no. The freedom, first of all, is not part of the Constitution. It's somewhere if you dig it, but it's a bureaucratic way to express. Okay. In Romania, you see, it's such a mixed bag because you cannot talk in Romania against communism. It was interdicted.
When Romania was communist?
When I was there.
Okay.
When I was there, because I lived until 79 in the beginning of the year. You cannot talk about communism. You can make jokes like kind of. Romanians have tons and tons of jokes on this, and Ceausescu would never put in prison people because of a joke. Before 25 years before, people went to hell because of jokes or because they were singing whatever. You cannot sing most of the nationalistic or something. You have to sing their communist stuff. You cannot. So I choose French. When I finished my diploma, the subject of my diploma was the French writer Marcel Proust. And Marcel Proust doesn't have anything to do with communism. Okay, so it was easy. You cannot travel. If you are part of the Communist Party, you have to participate to their meetings, and you have to. We were talking on that time, saying you gotta talk. You gotta have a wooden language. So you have a kind of wooden language, kind of stiff language, full of nouns that they have no sense,
You kind of just say what you're expected to say.
Yeah. I didn't want to advance. I never advanced. I was never, people that were in communist parties, they were, they were having positions, higher positions, whatever the field. They were sent communists. They were sent in a Western with all kind of what do you call that? It's called bursa in Romanian. It's in this moment scholarship.
Oh, okay.
Scholarships, all kind of scholarships. So no, it was not. I mean, they actually after 1 year they proposed me to go to a scholarship in Paris for 1 year, and then I realized, they are going to check my papers. So I went to that boss, and I said, I have to tell you something. And in order for you to understand, this guy was the general manager in he was he was responsible with the production. We had it was kind of we were working on kind of we made abstracts, if you know. Abstracts is like
art.
So you take a whole book, read it, and present it in one page, where you have an article and you punch the keywords in there and few things. So so everything that was published in Romania you could find in the books that were so he was like editor-in-chief,
Mm-hmm.
Another guy was the guy, his job was to be the eye, the pure political eye. He was the so-called syndicate. It was a syndicate. It's like a union.
Or he's like a commissar of some kind.
So we knew every single factory, unit, hospital, school, every single unit will have a person like that. So everybody knew who he was. He knew that we know, and he had all the folders, dossier, all the dossier with us. And I went to this editor-in-chief and I said about this scholarship, I cannot go. Why? Because my father. And I said, my father was in prison, blah, blah, blah. Oh. So then I said, okay, I will talk to you. So he went and he picked up information about me, and he came back and said, indeed, you cannot go. Somebody else went. And I know exactly the name, and it's... And I didn't want to go because it will be, you know, if the scholarship would have been for America, probably no, but it was very difficult. Yeah.
So how is it that you did get to America?
Yes, it was a situation. I was a translator, and I was assigned to work for somebody. We had a Congress, not Congress. We call it Congress in Romanian, but it was a conference, an international conference. Okay. In Romanian, we call this Congress.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was an international conference, and I met this person, and he wanted to have done a bibliography. He needed a bibliography to check a bibliography, and he could not go to. He was not a Romanian citizen, so he had to have someone, to go with him. So I went, and he asked me. I was rather free when I talked. I mean, I took chances because some of those people could be what we call șopârlă. In English would be that little creature that goes quickly like that.
Like a mole or a rat.
Yeah, whatever. I don't know the name. So in this case, I was lucky. I had a lot of good luck in my life. So he asked me about women, and I look at him, and I said, they are all under pay. They are all under the Secret Service. So if you find somebody that it's kind of a private person, I mean, but if you go to a kind of a mainstream to get a woman, a prostitute or something, you need to know that they are all on the list. So
it's an awkward conversation.
Yeah. so he was like, whoa, and then he asked me. So actually, he had a lot of very pro view about communism. That's why he came to this international conference and had. He sustained a paper.
And where was he from?
United States.
Oh, okay. So you're hanging out with an American in Romania.
No, I didn't hang. You cannot hang out in America because I was hired. I was a professional.
Okay, so you're working with him.
With him, I went to the library with him. When I was going to the library, we talked. Okay. And that time we didn't have stuff like that to record, so I told him the truth, and then he kind of loved communists. He kind of liked communists, and that was I was very. Already, I said, you must be an idiot. You come from United States and you like communism. So I know I didn't. I thought that, but I didn't say anything. And he said, so do you like something? I don't. He asked me, you like communism or something? And I said what I told you. I hope I'm not going to get married and die in this country. Mm-hmm. As long as it's communist. No, I didn't say that. I did in this country, which was, Then so I intrigued him. And a good friend of mine just left Romania at that time, and she was reunited with her aunt in New York. So I gave him the name of this friend of mine. He went and he met her, and he fell in love with her. And she, of course, didn't pay attention to him. He was older than us. He was about 13 years older than us.
Oh, wow.
And she got married, happy and so on. And he started to write to me. Anyway, a long story. Basically, he asked me to get married. And I didn't think twice. And I said, we are not the same age, you are older. And he said, look, I wanted to help you. So in other words, I wanted to help you to get out of the country and forget about, I don't want to impose on you. And I said, yes, thank you. So the problem was that he came. He came with the papers. He filled them in no time, and he went and he filled all these papers. It was not so easy on the time to Romania, and when that happened, I went and I talked to my parents, and I talked to him about my father. And something didn't go right with him. And so we got married. On that day we had a bunch of friends. We were extremely busy because in order to create papers to be married in Romania, it's like to fight a huge bureaucratic machines. Anyway, it's one book on this. But on that evening, I talked to him about my father. He did not know. It was so fast. It was in about 2 weeks. He knew only my aunt, and he didn't say anything. He came back to America and he completely stopped talking with me. Completely, because of my father's past. And so in Romania, if you get married, you can have a passport, but you cannot leave the country. You cannot.
What's the point of a passport?
You have to have a sponsorship to sponsor you, and so on and so on. So, at this point, I will tell you this much. I went to American Embassy, and I told them the truth. I said, look, what do you think about this guy? He's courting me for 2 years. He wanted to get married. He's came here. He pushed the marriage in 2 weeks. You are never going to find a single letter from me to him saying, please get married with me. I wanted to get out. So, and then all of a sudden he deserted me. I didn't tell them that I talked to him about my father's past, and they said, "Who? What? How is that possible?" And they sent him a telegram. He didn't answer. Another telegram. He didn't answer. Another telegram. And finally, they called me and they said, "You're entitled to go, but you cannot go as you have to go as an immigrant." So I left the country as an immigrant. And I went through everything that an immigrant will go. Except people, they left Romania without a passport, and they passed the Danube. I did not know how to swim so well, no. So there were people, they were passing illegally, usually men. hardly, almost no women. So I met in Italy. In Italy, I stayed half a year as an immigrant, because when you're an immigrant, you have to have papers with them. They have to take your prints, and to check your health and so on and so on. So I had this kind of chance to live with a passport, but I had to be an immigrant. So I was in Italy. People will go and stay in Italy for 1 month or 2 or 3 or 4, and then you have to have a sponsorship in America. And I was sponsored by some, because I was sitting there and I never asked anybody to I did not know anybody. No? So once in a while, when there are a lot of people, they make reports and they send to, and one church in New York sent papers to sponsor me. So this is how I left. And they paid, not the church, that institution in Italy that to take care of the immigrants, that institution in Italy paid for my trip. I didn't have to pay back.
That's nice.
Yeah, very nice. Very nice. But they had money from United States, because United States was encouraging to have immigrants. People, they've been, they had all kind of impediments in life, or prison, or something in life. When I got there, they interviewed me, and they were stunned. I was not part of the political party. Almost everybody. Have you been part of the political party? Yes. Have you been? Yes. I say, have you been? No. No? How? Yeah. So.
It's remarkable.
So I came here as an immigrant in America. My language was very minimal, and I did not know anybody other than I had in Italy. I met some people. They already knew some immigrants coming here. So, but all the immigrants that I knew were in California. So I did not know anybody in New York. So in New York I stayed. It was in Carter time. The high interest was very high, extremely high, and no jobs. So I stayed for a little bit, and then because there were no jobs, one of the immigrants from Italy called me and said, "Look, if you come right now, it's a factory. They were cutting orthopedic items. They were making orthopedic items for when you break your arm or legs or something." And they said, if you come, you can have a job, because all my life, I finished French in Romania. I was a translator, but I was SAF, the name of my business. My mom always taught me this trade, so I knew how to. I was a seamstress, actually. I knew French since I was 7, and I knew also to sew. And when I was like 18, I became pretty good on that. So they knew that I know how to sew, and they said, "It's this little factory. They need people. They do orthopedic items. You can have a job next day." So I jumped into a Greyhound, and in 1 week I was in California, Hayward.
Oh.
Hayward, California, and I stayed there for half a year, and then I went back to New York. So.
And what was it like? Well, I guess what were some of your first impressions of the United States as an immigrant from Romania?
I got, of course, this country, it's in your face materialistically, from the materialistic point of view. When I saw the first supermarket, I'm telling you, my first reaction was to go and punch that red meat. I thought, is this plastic? Is this real? And then I got absolutely a sentiment of fear. I all of a sudden got that kind of deep fear in me, and I was thinking, such an opulence, it cannot last forever. And I was in Ridgewood, New York, and a kind of not a big supermarket. It was a kind of regular mini supermarket. It was nothing special, but for me that kind of surface. For us, you go into a store like this room and you get everything. So to see that, and I remember saying, so many things, how long will that happen? It cannot last for too long.
I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Yeah. And that was the material part. The spiritual part. I realized that my everyday life was how to survive, how to have a job, and my kind of talking with people changed dramatically. I was not talking about art anymore, about history, about not that kind of so-called, let's call it kind of educated intellectual life, but just basic things about life, interesting. I start to know people, and they were not talking about books, and they were going to the movies and eating all the time popcorn, and to me that was like I became one of them now in no time, but to me at the beginning was, what? You go to the movie to focus on the movie. You don't eat popcorn in a movie. What's that? And then I said, that's not a bad idea. And I just became eating ice cream and popcorn, going to the movies. No, I start to discover people. So what I discovered about people is that they were, unlike Europeans, the Europeans will always hold something. They will be suspicious to tell you everything. They will be watching you and see what's going on with you. And Americans are open. And I appreciated that kind of genuine. That was my word on that time. I said, Americans are genuine inside. They are open. They are real inside. They are not. They don't hold against you something. They don't have thoughts, that they don't express. That was my first impressions. And in California, I always liked. I don't know why. I was very attracted by native and by black people. I had friends, native people, black people. I guess because they were poor, and I connected immediately with poor people. Immediately, I did not know when I was invited into a house that was big and everything was beautiful, and they had garage, double garage or something. I was intimidated. I couldn't relate. And so I fell in love with this country, mainly because of people. But as I grew older, more and more, I realized that the people are manipulated into an agenda. And I have this conviction at this day.
I guess kind of connected to that. There are some people that say or make the argument. They look at Stalin, they look at Mao, they look at Kim Jong-un, and all of them, Castro. And very often, sometimes people will say, well, that's not real communism. And how would you respond to that?
I told you, communism is just a buzzword. We should describe the situation as it's not communist. It's not communist because actually, Marx. You know what Marx said? The communist will occur naturally, peacefully, into a high developed capitalistic country. No, it didn't happen this way. Okay, so that's the theory. In reality, is a dictature of a 1% controlling and putting to be slaves, to use their force of their energy and their work and their labor, the value of their labor for them. And that should be called the 1% until against 99. It's a dictature. In order to, Lenin knew that, say, we have to, because it was not probably very easy. I don't know. I have to know more history about Russia. But he used the word dictature. But in order to quote it, to translate it for people like us, for blue-collar people, the dictature of the proletariat. Oh, give me a break. It's the dictature of the 1%. Using the proletarian. They never got rich, the proletarian, never. The peasant never got richer, Okay, so these people, if we continue to talk about communism, it's very confusing. We have to recognize a pattern that at least it's clear to me since French Revolution. A small minority will use terror and violence and set up revolutions and slaughtering and crimes and something to take over the power. And it's going on was Russia, and then Eastern Europe, and then Cuba, and then China in 49, Cuba in 40 something, 51 or
59.
Something, 50,
59.
It was 59?
Yeah.
10 years after China. Okay, and it continues right now, Venezuela and so on, and now it's here. So this is not communism. Communism is a theory that doesn't have practical stand. It cannot. And I will tell you very simply. Tell me one single country that is called itself communist and it was able to create prosperity.
I can't do that.
So
because it's never happened.
Only capitalists created that. The only system that we have, it's capitalism, which is what? Is the small business actually. This is what it is, because capitalism is not big corporation. Big corporation, it's already, when you have big government, big corporation, it's fascism or communism. It's the small business. It's the freedom of having your own business. And this does work. Always did and always will. Because it's your property, it's your own business, it's your own, And there are some elites on this planet. They have all the money and they think they can do it. And they are using these words like communism. Communism, it's a word, it's a theory. It was not applied, ever. It was never applied. And actually, when we say communist, to tell you strictly and terminology to be correct from terminology point of view, we never had communism, especially in the country that I know. We had socialism. Romania was not called the Republic Communist of Romania. It was called the Socialistic Republic of Romania.
In the USSR, Union of Soviet Socialists.
Socialists, exactly. They were socialists. They were not communists. Communism is something that is practically it's
the end of history.
It's a theory. It's a theory that was never hold water. So we have to, they are confusing us. They are in schools. This is confusing. We have to call a spade a spade. We have to call communism. It's a theory. It's Marx. Actually, he was wrong. He wanted to be, I don't know, what kind of philosopher or something. I don't know, because, I hated so much communists that I should read Capital. I didn't read Capital.
I did.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay, good for you.
It's okay, you're not missing much.
Yeah. No, I didn't. But I know the theory of the demand and that and the productivity and the blah, 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 all the words I know in Romanian, I don't know in English.
Right.
So because we all the way from school all the way to college we study political economy. It's called politics and economy and politics. I don't know how to say it in English correctly, but we call it short Marxism. So we study Marxism, but I never read their book. So we have to know that communism in China right now it says CCP, it's communist. I don't know, because I don't know the organization in China. And in Cuba it's called how? Communist Party?
I would imagine. Now that I think about it, I don't know.
So now it's communist. It's a word, and we have to call it the dictator of 1% of the planet. Of the planet, the dictator of 1%. This 1% has everything, has all the money, doesn't pay taxes. I think we are asleep. We are asleep, all of us.
Okay. I have a couple more questions, but I do think that I've been really enjoying this conversation, and I hope you have as well.
I did.
It might be a good idea to start wrapping up relatively soon. I have 2 or 3 more questions, if that's okay. First one, if you could give a teenager any piece of advice at all about life, about anything, what would your piece of advice be? And I know that's a big question.
It's like what I learned at this age, because when I came here, my son was a teenager, and I was not a good parent. I was always struggling for what it's next day, for the matter, for having money to survive, and I never had a saving account in America ever since I am in this country. I invested in this house. This is my saving account.
This building here. Oh wow!
I built it with my family and my my brothers. Yeah, it was a small house, and we developed into this one. So I will speak. Unfortunately, I cannot speak as a good mother. I can speak as a. As a person that accumulated life experience, and what I would do if I would have a chance to have a grandchild. Because I didn't pay attention enough to my son. I trusted too much the school system here. So, what I told you before, I think the core of a human being is its spirit. So I would tell that the kids the teenagers should know in equal, if in school they are educated with Darwin and Marx, fine, read it, Marx, Darwin, everything, but in the same time read Old Testament and especially New Testament and find out about God, creation, and Christ. Because I will tell you, it will be extremely interesting for somebody that has absolutely no censure, a kid that it's not censored. Let him read and let him ask questions. Teenagers are great on this, to ask questions. Learn at least 2 languages before the age of 13. After 13, our brain doesn't process the vowels very well. So I lived more than I lived in my own country in this, and I still have an accent because of the vowels. I have 5 vowels in Romanian, and English has about 12 or even 14 vowels, different vowels. So when the brain, when you are young, some of the brain, part of the brain, it's open to process vowels, and you can learn with no accent. Consonants are not a problem. M, N, S, that's fine. So, but if you come from a language with 5 vowels to a language with 14, you have to have, if you like to have no accent, you have to go to speech therapy or something. Very powerful, not to have an accent. So the kids up to 13, teach them like you stuff a paper. You know what you do, stuff paper? Teach them, because they can sort out the languages. They can learn 3 languages in the same time with their own vowels. And they have, if they know 3 languages, they have 30 windows towards the world. Teach them geography and true history as much as possible. The true history, it quite does not exist. But okay. And it's good for a kid to have sports, but don't try to coat or control or whatever their hormones by pushing them to sports and to perform a high performance. They don't need that. They need food for the spirit. They need sports too, but it's like part of the development to play a sport, to learn the team spirit or something, but not all the time. And entertainment, it should be 0. Only very good movies. I will tell the teenagers, go and swim in foreign languages, geography, history, and read. On the left have Darwin, and on the right had the Bible. Read and tell me, what do you think? And they are going to have, they are not going to have this BS of hatred, and what is this empty talk about hatred and something? That's their history anyway. And so if you have that base, then you are ready to understand politics better, and in no time the young people, they should run for office. I hope that with this kind of opening, the natural way for them is to be conservative, to like values, families, borders, laws, not lawless, not borderless. Everybody likes immigrants. I'm an immigrant, but legal. You cannot have all the traffickers and all the bad people coming into this country just because they vote Democrats. So my assumption is that more you strengthen your spirit, you are going to be more naturally, you are going to be, let's say, you will be more, at least you will be an independent. And with this value, you have a guideline in life, and you think about, if you happen to be, to like social sciences, maybe rather than be a social worker, you go and run for office and do good things for your country. Because whoever is running, it's a kind of a tribalistic people. They exchange money among themselves, and they ruin this country. My opinion.
And I guess I have one last question, maybe two. As we're starting to wrap up, I know we kind of started with a silly question.
Yeah.
So I'm going to end with a silly question. You mentioned that there's a lot of very good Romanian jokes.
Yeah.
Would you be able to tell me a Romanian joke?
Oh, Ceausescu never cheated on his wife. Never cheated. No, that's the reality. But we have this joke. Ceausescu falls in love with a beautiful blonde, and he's telling her, I will give you everything you want. What do you want me to give you? And she said, I don't want any money, nothing, but I would like you to let people have passports. and he said, oh my dear, I see how much you love me. You would like only you and I to be to be left in this country. Oh,
that's really funny.
Oh, I'm funny. Another one is Ceausescu was traveling a lot, because he was trying to create the third world bank. Nobody knows about that. He was talking with that guy from Tripoli, with Gaddafi. And they were trying to put together a bank where poor people, poor countries like us who can have loans and something, Anyway, so he was traveling a lot, and he was coming back, and it's like, oh, Comrade Ceausescu was in this country, and look, he was welcome like a king. And, in London, they gave him a kind of a rank, kind of a knight. He was made a knight or something,
really?
Kind of BS. When Ceausescu was killed, they took it away. Anyway, the Ceausescu receives a delegation from another country, and he goes on the balcony, and he says, in this country I'm the king, and I am adored by everybody. And they said, even the sun is adoring me. And he went to the balcony and said, hey son, how are you today? And the son said, oh, I am kneeling in front of you, and I'm honored you, king of Romania. And and the delegation was, wow, the son is adoring Ceausescu. And another time, another delegations come, so they spend a little more time with the dinner, and after dinner, Ceausescu went outside, and he goes. Instead of morning, it was late afternoon, and he says, "Son, how are you today? What's going on today?" So, or something like, "How do you honor me today, son?" And son, he says something that I cannot say in Romanian, in English. And then he said, "The hell with you. Right now I am in a West."
All right.
So he was in a West.
Yeah.
No, there are thousands.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Would you like to tell us a bit about your business, and then we can wrap it up? I mean, if you want to, that's okay.
No, I am. You know what? Actually, I have too many customers than I need.
Okay, so it's fine. We don't need to.
So
put
no, I don't want to because it's a profession that I know ever since I'm a little girl, and that profession in this country served me much better to know a trade, served me much better than to be a French teacher.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
All right, I just really want to thank you for your time.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the conversation.
And I enjoy your questions. My goodness.
I don't interview people very often. So. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.